It is World Mental Health Day today, and it's a chance for people to talk openly about the issues and raise awareness around mental health. Well, the former Burnley defender, Clarke Carlisle, is the ambassador at the charity Mind, joins us live this lunchtime. Very good afternoon to you, Clarke. Great to have you with us. For someone who's been through such open struggles with mental health and with depression, I always feel that the most important, pertinent question is, how are you doing?
Good afternoon, Rob. I am blessed today, thank you. Yes, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling capable. I'm feeling content. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you very much for asking. I've been reading a lot about maybe the times when you didn't feel quite so well, and these were some of the thoughts that were going through your mind. You said, I'm not good enough, I'm stealing oxygen, I'm an embarrassment to my kids, I'm an embarrassment to my parents. And today you've spoken about it being time to talk. Are those feelings that get worse and worse the more you keep it bottled up yourself?
Definitely. You know, if you live in that silo of your own mind and you don't get any objectivity on these thoughts that are going round in your mind, then especially if you're living as I was with recurrent complex depression, you end up taking these thoughts to the nth degree and they become your fact. And if you don't have anyone to, interject and take your thoughts along a different path, then that can lead to a very dangerous situation like I experienced.
Well, it led to, I think, 5, you've said, dangerous experiences where you tried to take your own life. Now that you've gone through therapy and you feel in a much better place, how do you reflect on the person that came to the point where you thought the best thing for me is just not to be here anymore?
Wow, what a brilliant question. You know, now I'm some 7 years removed from the last time that I was actively suicidal, 2017. And I've got to say that when I reflect on that person, it's almost like I'm reflecting on a different human being. And that's because I've taken this last 6 to 7 years to consciously work on my mindset, on my thought processes, on my coping strategies, and the way that I act and react in certain situations and in general life situations. But the big point that I need to get across, Rob, is that, that kind of reactive approach, that's the way that we approach mental health in the UK, and we need to change that. People don't have to get to that crisis disaster recovery points like I did. If anyone today makes a conscious decision to actually become more self-aware, to understand what their thought processes are and whether they work for them in a constructive manner, then you can get to this point of wellness that I'm experiencing today far quicker and without any of the trauma that goes alongside it.
As I said, your tweet today says time to talk, and I think particularly us blokes aren't as good at that. Maybe we're getting better. Do you think that one of the things that helps particularly men feel more comfortable talking about their mental health is that people in the sporting arena, heroic figures like Ben Stokes, have come out and said it's OK to say I am struggling and I needed help?
Definitely. When you've got someone to look up to, or who can, be the example of what talking about your mental health is like, what talking about your well-being looks like, and we can still see that they are performing, at an elite level at the top end of their game. It detracts from that stigma that it's any kind of sign of weakness or self-reflection. And we've been talking about it's time to talk with Mind for 3 decades now. We actually need to go one step further. It's now time to take action, because when we're talking about things, we start to raise our awareness. But it's when we take action, that's when we can start to actually effect change in our lives. So yes, it's good to talk, and let that be the beginning of the actions that you're going to take. Seeing other people do it, there's a flip side to that coin, Rob, where you think that if I talk about my mental health, then the world is going to know, because like this, it's on Sky Sports News. But it doesn't have to be like that. You don't have to be like me. You don't have to be like Ben Stokes and tell the world. But it's imperative that if something's going on in your life, that you talk to someone, and the right someone, at the right time.
Let's talk about mental health within sport and how the challenges have maybe changed for young athletes making their way in various games now, that there are parts of their lives, particularly social media, which are very different to when you were a footballer.
I'm not that old, Ben.
I didn't even have computers in your day, they can't they?
No, no, it is very different. It is very different. You know, I came through the inception of social media, and because I wasn't taking care of my wellness, it was incredibly intrusive. It was incredibly destructive. You know, I saw all of these hundreds upon thousands of tweets, and I thought that every single one of them, every single person had the right to impose their views upon me, and that it, you know, it defined me as a human being. But now we have young people who are getting engaged in social media from a very young age, and we definitely need to coach them that, you know, this isn't a whole world reality, that what they're seeing, especially on the likes of Instagram, are just millisecond snapshots of people's lives and not the whole context to the story. But also, you know, the plethora of opinions that get fired at them, they are exactly that. They are one person's opinion, and they do not define who our young people are. So coaching and training around that, it is absolutely fundamental, Rob.
I've read a lot of articles and books from athletes who've struggled with their mental health. And one of the things that comes up all the time is them saying, I was afraid that I would get dropped if I went to my manager or my coach or whoever it might be and said, I'm struggling with my mental health. It's very different from saying, oh, my hamstrings hurts a little bit today. Do you think that clubs and people within those clubs are more accessible than they used to for people to put their hands up and say, I'm struggling a bit?
Oh, the appetite and the levels of understanding are increasing, but it'd be remiss of me to say that if a player came forward to say that they're struggling with their mental health, that wouldn't impact on their team selection, you know, because the entirety of society is not at the top end of the bell curve, where we understand that direct action at that point can be just like going to someone and saying my hamstring is tight. You know, you take a different training regime for a couple of days with specialist input, and that person will be back firing on top form, you know, as soon as possible. So the understanding and the appetite is increasing, but until we have, especially within football, an industry-wide mechanism that ensures that the same guy at the bottom of League Two is getting the same treatment as the guy at the top of the Premier League, that the same lady in the Championship at the bottom of the Women's Championship is getting the same care as the lady at the top of the Women's Super League, until we know that everyone is getting a uniform, comprehensive approach, then people are going to slip through the gaps, because they're going to retain that isolation and secrecy about what's going on.
Just finally then, there will be people watching this lunchtime. There might be athletes watching this lunchtime who are struggling. There will certainly be people at home who feel, oh, I've not quite been feeling myself, but it's not a mental health issue, that maybe now realise they have. What are the key tips that you would give those who might be struggling a little bit at the moment in terms of getting themselves on a path to progression?
I reiterate the point I mentioned earlier. Don't wait until there's an incident or a trauma that you have to look at your mental health and well-being. Don't be forced to address what's going on in your life. Take control now, and proactively. That means that you can make small changes that are effectively like putting your seatbelt on. You know, you don't put your seatbelt on in the car after you've had a crash. You put it on beforehand to mitigate the impact of life. And that's what I'd actively encourage people to do. Find out what the resources are around you, contact your local mind, see what they're doing, like this project with ASICS, where they're encouraging people to redefine what a personal best is. It's not always about times and achievement. It's about how what you're doing makes you feel.
It is lovely to see you in good spirits. Thank you so much for being with us this afternoon.
Thanks, Rob. God bless.